there fellow guitar slingers, Josh Rogers here. Thanks for joining me for another tutorial. This tutorial is about the Ring Modulator effect inside the AX8. It's one of those effects that a lot of people don't know much about. Most of us know a lot about distortion and compression, delays, reverbs, but the Ring Modulator is kind of out there on the fringes of our understanding. Is to just bring you up to speed with the history of ring modulation, a little bit of background about what it does and who's used it, what the parameters are, and a couple of cool tricks and tips that you can use to get the most out of this effects block. Ring modulation mixes two waveforms, namely the original waveform that's coming in from your guitar or any other instrument, and a carrier signal. The carrier signal is what is created after your original signal has done a little ring. While we're on this subject, how did it get its name, Ring Modulator? The diodes inside the circuit were arranged in a ring. It either traveled clockwise or counterclockwise, dependent upon the maker. It takes your original signal, adds a carrier signal to it, and then it sums them both together. When it does that, most of the original signal is lost and you come up with something completely new. The new signal usually has a lot of partials. They're the sounds and frequencies that accompany the fundamental. I like to think about it like a queen and her entourage. You've got the queen, she makes her grand entrance, everyone's focused on the queen, but she always has these retainers or these people that are kind of accompanying her. Those are the partials. The Ring Modulator is adding partials in, subtracting some things, adding stuff here, taking it away over there. That's dependent on some of the parameters, but I'll get into that a little bit later. A little bit more history. The first instrument that featured the Ring Modulator was made in 1947 by Harald Bode, and it was called the mellow chord. Yeah, it was called a mellow chord. For guitarists, the most famous people that we may know that have used these in the past be Tony Iommi. He used that in the 1970 recording of Paranoid from Black Sabbath. And also John Lord from Deep Purple. He was known to use a Ring Modulator. I think it was a Gibson Ring Modulator when he was performing live. If you'd like to go and check out those recordings, be my guest, and you can hear the Ring Modulator in full flight. Let's bring up the effects block and let's go down here to Ring Modulator. We bring it in. Here it's appeared, and the parameters, thankfully, there's only 4. It's amazing considering how many parameters most of the effects blocks has inside the AX8. It's actually a pleasant reprieve from a lot of the other effects inside the AX8 that have pages and pages of parameters. Here we only have 4, and one of them is a simple on-off switch. So let's go through them. Let's start with frequency. Frequency sets the frequency of the oscillator. Another way of thinking about it, it sets the main pitch of the carrier wave. Earlier on I was talking about the carrier wave. That's the wave that the Ring Modulator actually creates after it's received the original input wave from your guitar. This is setting the frequency for that. Let's move across. Frequency multiplier. The way I like to think about this is it shapes in music. You have a nice pleasant wave. It's a sine wave. It goes up and down really regularly. It looks beautiful. This frequency modulator, depending on which way you set it, it goes all the way. The frequency multiplier goes from 0.25 all the way up to 4. It changes the shape. It changes the shape of the waveform. We have 4 different shapes of wave: the square, triangle, sine, and sawtooth. Sometimes sawtooth is also called ramp. I'm not going to get into details about it, but certain shapes include certain frequencies like odd harmonics and even harmonics. Some have a combination of both, getting louder and softer or softer and louder. It just depends on how you set it up. The best way to do that is just to experiment. Moving along here, let's just discuss track. So we have off and on. A lot of ring modulators don't have this. I'm going to tell you why, but first I'm going to explain what it actually does. Track gives you some idea. If you set it to on, it's going to follow the input signal that's coming from your guitar. It will shift according to whatever pitch you're playing. This is going to stay constant, but it will move accordingly. At the moment it's set to 500, or it's moving with me there, so 408 Hertz above whatever frequency you're playing on your guitar. If you turn it off, it's just going to stay here. It won't move regardless of what's coming in. It's just going to be creating this carrier pitch at 408 Hertz. Turn it on and it's going to track your playing. As I was saying before, there's quite a lot of pedals out there that don't have this feature. And the reason they don't have the tracking feature is because it's almost preferable to just let the frequency do its thing and create what it will. If it's tracking, it removes a little bit of the randomness. That's kind of up to you. If you want to use it, use it. If you don't, don't. Let's move on to the last one, the high cut. This is the easiest one of all to understand, from 200 Hertz all the way up to 20,000. As I've explained in some of my earlier tutorials, wherever you set it, any frequencies above 6,375, they're going to have an attenuation of minus 3 dB, which just means, in layman's terms, they're going to be softer. Let's have a look at some cool things that you can do with the Ring Modulator. Let's go here to the frequency parameter. As I've explained in some earlier tutorials, whenever you see this little icon in the center here, it means you can assign a pedal to it. So let's right click on there and we come up to source and we can control this parameter using a pedal. If you assign a variable pedal to that, like an expression pedal, let's say you've got a Mission SP1, you can change this in real time. And it's going to act like a whammy, which is pretty cool actually. So that's one thing that you can do. Assign a pedal here and adjust this frequency as you're playing and see what happens. I'm sure it's going to provide you with years of fun. You can also use this like a lower octave creator, and the way you're going to do that is you're going to turn track on, so it's going to track the input pitch exactly in accordance with this frequency. But we're going to turn the frequency to 500. It won't go to 500, I can tell you that now. It goes to 499.9, and we're going to come across to the high cut and we're going to type in 500. This particular little trick, where did I get this from? Oh, I got this trick from Fractal Wiki. I actually get quite a bit of my info from there. A lot of the information that I get for these tutorials is gained by a lot of research online, some of my own personal experience, and talking with a lot of friends that I have in the industry. They're either guitar players or I've worked with a lot of synth players, and they're really familiar with a lot of these effects, especially effects like modulator, synthesizers, and that kind of thing. So those guys know a lot about this stuff. They can explain this. Guitarists know about distortion. Synthesizer players know a lot about this kind of stuff. Try that, see how you go. That's your lower octave coming from Ring Modulator. If you've liked my tutorial, please give me a thumbs up and please leave a comment below. I really appreciate the comments. Any feedback you can give me is really well appreciated. It doesn't matter if it's negative or positive, just any feedback. Negative feedback's helpful because it means I'll try not to repeat whatever didn't quite work in the previous tutorial. And positive, that helps me, that gives me like encouragement to do more tutorials. They do take a lot of time. It's a lot of benefit for me too. I'm learning just like you guys. No one can know everything. A pedal as complicated as the AX8. It's like an endless journey of learning. As you know, it's me, I'm out. Let your fingers fly.